From Wild Shape on to spellcasting, today we take a look at the 1st edition Pathfinder Druid spellcasting, starting off with their 0 and 1st level spells. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here to move on to the 1st edition Pathfinder Druid spells. Much like I said in the intro, today we're taking a look at their 0 and 1st level spells. Just bear in mind that when it comes to these spells, this is not everything that is inherently available to them. There's so much more that is out there, and also one other thing that needs to be repeated that I will repeat often and frequently, ad nauseum, ad infinitum, is that this is just a guide. All of my videos are just guides, tips, tricks, suggestions, and they're not even meant to necessarily be so much full-on optimization guides, but just to look at the mechanically effective things and little ways to put them together. Certainly there are more game-breaking ways of building these different character classes, but I generally like to lean a little bit more into storytelling, and really getting a grasp and understanding of the mechanics and how a particular class works, I feel really does kind of help you play with that a little bit more, so that way you still have some effective options, but if you see something that is mathematically, mechanically, rules-wise, just not all that great, but just really fits the fluff and backstory that you have for your particular character, then I want you to have the room to do that. Not everything needs to be optimized all the way down to the last little detail. And in particular, when it comes to druids and other full spellcasting classes, you're generally going to be on the upper end of the power scale, if not the very tip top of it anyways, so you do have more room than others to kind of play around with things. So get out there, experiment, and build the characters that you want to build. Now, before we get into everything here today, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now we'll actually start to get into things here. One thing to note with the Druid is that you are a full progression spellcasting class. That means you don't stop at 4th level spells or 6th level spells. You work your way all the way up to the pinnacle of 9th level spells, any one of which is going to be absolutely devastating in comparison to their lower level counterparts. Though, even amongst 9th level spells, not every spell is created equally. As a full spellcasting class, you run off of your wisdom score as a druid. Your wisdom modifier is going to affect the number of bonus spells you get per day, your spell save DCs. All of those things are going to be massively important to you, even as we're leaning into being focused more on wild shape. We still take the natural spell feat, so that way while your character is wild shaped, they can still access the full suite of their abilities. Just bear in mind that doesn't happen till 5th level, but you should be able to kind of balance and bounce back and forth between those two particular needs pretty readily, I would say, especially by the time you hit 5th level. The point that you need to be really maximizing your action economy and minimizing the usage of wild shapes going back and forth is really going to pick up around then anyways, at least in my experience. But now let's actually start talking about spells, and for your 0 level spells, we have Guidance. Use a standard action to touch target creature and give them a +1 competence bonus on a single attack roll, skill check, or saving throw. The bonus lasts for 1 minute until used, and the reason why this is good, even though it's only a +1 bonus, it's a +1 competence bonus. In exchange for a 0 level spell, that actually works out pretty damn nicely, because a competence bonus will stack with so many other bonuses, so it won't count against any enhancement bonuses, any strength bonuses, any size bonuses, or any other particular bonuses that might be coming into play. So it stacks and fits in really neatly, really nicely, though the value of it will drop off over time. It's still going to be pretty handy for those first couple of levels. Then we have Detect Magic, which is just going to be useful throughout the course of your adventure and career. You detect magic auras in a 60-foot cone area. The more rounds you focus, the more information you will glean using this spell, and it's up to 3 rounds of focusing that gets you more and more detail. And from there we move on to Read Magic. Give yourself the ability to read and decipher the notations, runes, and symbols on scrolls, books, and weapons for up to 10 minutes per level, and this will go a long way towards helping you identify what is what and making sense of all of these different things. So this is still going to be a handy spell even throughout down the line, and can help save you some skill points in certain areas, like Spellcraft, although I would still, at least to my mind, Spellcraft would be worth putting in some frequent skill ranks. This can still help to shore up any gaps that might be presented there, and used in conjunction together, you're going to be able to figure out a lot of magic and arcane, divine sorts of information. Then the next 0 level spell I would recommend looking at would be Light. You touch target object to cause it to glow like a torch in a 20-foot radius, increasing the light level 1 step out to another 20-foot radius from that. Maximum is normal light. You can only have 1 light spell going at a particular time, illuminating one particular source. And this can be anything. The brim of your hood, so it's up out of your eyes, the end of your staff, a pebble that you just hurl along down the corridor so you can see what's further down along there. Now, the reason why light isn't rated super high is because, well, there's a lot of different kinds of races and ancestries that offer up low light vision, dark vision, things like that. And if you're in dark areas and you have opponents with dark vision and you're using this light spell, you're kind of painting a bullseye on yourself. But if you're following this guide, particularly going with the human as the race that you've picked out for yourself, then you're going to be lacking in some vision options for part of the time that you are not in your wild shapes. So that can get a little bit tricky, and this can be useful in those situations. Also, depending on a little bit of creativity, you can maybe get more mileage out of this spell than you would expect. And lastly, for 0 level spells, we have Enhanced Diplomacy. Touch target creature to give a +2 competence bonus on a single diplomacy or intimidate check. It must choose to use the bonus before making the roll to which it applies, and the it in this case being the target creature that you touch. You can use this on yourself, you can use this on the party bard, you can use this on your animal companion if you have them make an intimidate check. Now, the reason why this gets such a very swingy rating, either really good or kind of bad, it just depends on who you're targeting with. We are not building this particular druid to be really big into any face-oriented skills. The only one that really is worth considering putting any ranks into is, well, handle animal and the like, and you have access to a lot of magic to help with that, and also your class offers you bonuses to that, and while it does have its uses, and you certainly can spam it and abuse it and really lean into developing all kinds of different neat and interesting things with it, that's not what we're doing with this particular guide. Though, again, this does not mean this spell is without its uses, you just have to pick out which target or the right times to use it. So definitely worth looking at and considering. But from there, we now move on to your first level spells, that first little taste of actual power. Well, not that these others don't offer power, but you get my point. And we're going to start things off with Entangle. It's a classic. You use a standard action, in fact most of these spells are going to be standard actions, and pick a point within 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. This creates difficult terrain in a 40-foot radius. Any creature that fails their reflex save stops moving and becomes entangled, which imposes 1/2 speed penalties, -2 to attack rolls, -4 to dexterity scores, and dexterity score, just your dexterity scores overall. DC, there's also a DC 15 plus spell level concentration check to cast successfully if they are in that area. So this does a lot to hinder and hamper a wide variety of different targets. And again, it's a 40-foot radius and lasts 1 minute per level, with the reflex for partial saves. So all the way around, this is actually pretty cool. Even though it allows a partial save, you're still getting a partial effect in on opponents there, and you are potentially disrupting enemy spellcasters, and it's got an incredibly long range. So this spell will actually stay pretty useful far longer than it probably should, especially if you're boosting up your wisdom score, getting that wisdom bonus going up a fair bit more. Then we also have Frostbite. You make a melee touch attack against a target creature to deal 1d6 non-lethal cold damage, plus 1 per level, and you deal fatigue. The fatigued condition ends when the target recovers from the non-lethal damage. You can't use this spell to make a creature exhausted, however, even if they were already fatigued. And this is usable once per level, so you can make 1 touch attack with this per level after you've cast it on yourself. And this spell is actually staggeringly awesome. This actually kind of blows Entangled out of the water a little bit, because you're just doing a touch attack, which is easy enough, especially against heavily armored targets. They're not usually going to have the greatest of dexterity scores, and even then the heavy armor is going to be penalizing them a little bit. But the fact that they just take the fatigue effect, no save for it or anything, it's not dealing any lethal damage, but that damage is going to be difficult to get away. It's going to require somebody spend some spell slots, a potion, or make uses of wand, and that's eating to their action economy, trying to heal somebody up who hasn't actually taken real lethal damage yet, and trying to remove this status effect from them. Otherwise, it's just going to last, and actually healing doesn't start until you're outside of combat and not in threatened conditions or under some kind of threat or danger like that. So definitely a spell worth having on your list overall. And given that nature magic is basically along the lines of divine magic, you can swap this in pretty readily. No needs of having to learn the spell beforehand required necessarily. Then moving on from there, we have the Longstrider spell. Target self to boost your base movement speed by 10 feet. No effect on burrow, climb, or fly speeds, and it lasts 1 hour per level. This is actually a much better spell than I think some people realize. Even though it's not affecting these other methods of movement that you will have access to through your animal forms, it's still a plus 10 foot speed, and your other animal forms are still going to, by and large, have a ground speed. So that will still be boosted by 10 feet per level, and that can get up to some pretty damn crazy speeds and lengths of movement across the battlefield. That's an incredible amount of mobility and positioning that you're going to be able to afford yourself using this. So this is definitely worthwhile. The fact that it lasts this long means you can apply this to yourself and potentially travel significantly faster than you would otherwise be able to. And then we also come to another classic spell. We have Obscuring Mist. Create a 20-foot high, 20-foot radius cloud of mist centered on you that obscures all sight 5 feet away from you or further, granting you concealment, which is a 20% mischance on attacks coming your way. Creatures that are further away from you are dealing with total concealment in that case, which bumps that up to a 50% mischance, and they cannot use basic normal sight to find you. However, strong winds and fireball or similar fiery spells will dissipate the mist, cause it to blow away or evaporate away. But while this is in place, that 50% mischance or even the 20% mischance is just another layer of defense for you to deal with, because before we know if the attack even has a chance of affecting your armor class at all, you just have a 1 in 5 shot at minimum of the attack just flat out missing. And then if they're further away and doing ranged attacks, or if they're a big creature with a significant reach, they're still at a 50% mischance there overall. Those are some pretty damn good odds and will do a lot to help you survive, even though you have a lower armor class and a lower HP total than a lot of other melee combat-oriented creatures or classes might have. And then lastly, we come to Summon Nature's Ally 1. You summon one creature at a point within 25 feet plus 5 feet for every 2 levels. Now, when you use this spell, bear in mind that while most animals don't have an ability to summon other creatures, there still is a stipulation there that, well, a summoned creature cannot use any abilities for summoning other creatures, so bear that in mind. But when you do summon the creature, you're really going to want to consider something like a Sturge, which will come with a +7 touch attack for their attach ability, and it deals con drain as damage, so they're affecting the constitution score, which is just fantastic. That's great all the way around. That reduces a target's total maximum hit points. That reduces their fortitude saves. That also, I believe, affects concentration checks. That might be 3.5 I'm mixing in there, but anyways, reducing that constitution score still does so much for you, especially if they have any kind of a significant constitution score. Also, consider looking at mites, which are a type of gremlin. For 120-foot dark vision, low light vision, and scent, they're also a small size creature and they have humanoid hands, so this lets them open doors, act as scouts essentially, and because they are small size, they can actually provide a flanking bonus to you and your allies. Or consider eagles for their flight, which gives them incredible maneuverability, 3 attacks, and small size to provide that flanking bonus as mentioned before. The eagle is probably going to be one of your more viable low-level combat forms that you can summon in. However, it should be noted that the creature will need to make fly checks in order to be able to hover in place and maintain a flanking position to provide that bonus. Otherwise, it's going to be flyby attacks, which, not bad, but there are going to be plenty of situations where you want that flanking bonus, especially if you're setting them up to help out the rogue. The rogue is going to want that creature to maintain themselves there so that they can get their sneak attack damage bonus overall, which will boost the party's damage output. But like I said before, these are certainly not all the spells. Druids also get Cure Light Wounds, which is a good spell, but just bear in mind that healing, especially healing in the midst of combat 9 times out of 10, maybe even 9.5 times out of 10, is not going to be your most effective option. You're going to be better off, more often than not, having Cure Light Wounds as a wand that you use after combat. It's inexpensive, it's incredible bang for your buck, it saves you on spell slots. You'll be able to do a lot to get your party restored back up to full health, and some DMs do have a little bit of trouble keeping track of the charges, or maybe don't always bother to do so. I know I have done that once or twice before. Not bothered, just kind of forgot to. So bear that in mind. Don't try to cheat your DMs. It's just something I realized afterwards and mentioned to my players. My players went, oh yeah, crap. We should probably buy more. Should we spend the gold now? Should we just say we've been spending the gold? How much is that? And so, worked it out. ADHD brains, a collection of ADHD brains absorbed in the story, forgetting some of the other details. But, I take that as a sign of a good game. Anyways, speaking of ADHD brains, I am derailing here. What do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know either way. Hit those like or dislike buttons and we'll engage in discussion down below. Definitely point out any other spells that you might recommend for any aspiring druids out there. And remember, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.